Okay, so today I thought I'll just ramble on a little bit of everything that I've been experiencing. Then I thought that I might speak a bit about James Casbolt because so many people have been asking me about that. The problem with this subject is that I am very respectful to the people around him and to him himself because of what he's been through. So I just want to give an overview of what I experienced a bit with respect to everyone around them and keeping their identities and everything else safe, and speak about what I feel happened to him, and hopefully he can overcome this. I did want to say that we skipped to last week's blog because I got busy with family, so I'm sorry about that, because a lot of people were sending me messages saying, what happened to you last week? Well, I got busy. I got dragged out the door to family dinner, so I couldn't say no. But anyhow, since the last blog where I talked about the cosmic virus a bit, it's interesting because right after that, when I was talking about it being parasitic, and I also believe that it was tied to parasites in the blood and parasites in the gut system, it was really interesting because BBC let out an article where I think it's the Stanford scientist or something like that asked for a full parasitic detox of 1.5 billion people. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And then I started to think, well, maybe as we find solutions, for the things happening, literally the mass consciousness picks it up. And then people who are scientists or people who are even people who make movies, people who are, what's the word for it, that make movies? Directors, sorry, because I get my English and French mixed up because I grew up partially in France. That happens sometimes. Directors, I feel like people who are directors, people who write novels, people stream it out. What we need to realize is that everything that's streaming out from ourselves is not, it's not something that is fake or fiction. It's actually, they're streaming out what's really happening in time, and I spoke about that last time. Well, anyhow, I feel like after that I spoke about that, then somehow this article came out and they asked for a parasitic cleanse to be done for 1.5 billion people. I thought that was really interesting. It's as if they had downloaded the information that I was putting out there, and they were then looking at it and finding that it was, that it had some sort of foundation that's true to it. So I believe that as we heal ourselves, as we find solutions, we're putting it into the mass consciousness and we're helping awake the mass consciousness, and that's the point that I wanted to get here. I also think that I was trying to say that the people who suffer the most sometimes, they come out the best because they come out almost like a gold that's been boiled, over and over again till it becomes the very purest gold that it can be. So I wanted to encourage everybody out there who's having any sort of issues and any sort of hardship in life and say that let those things make you stronger. Let them show you that you can be a better person even under pressure. And it's happened to me, and I've definitely turned out much better than if I was, I feel like since I had a hard childhood, it's helped to refine me like a diamond, so I could look around and see the things that I didn't want to do to others and the things that I didn't want to do to myself, because I believe in the world we are, there's a lot of self-harm going on. There's a lot of harm to others, and there's, in general, this parasitic consciousness is feeding off of that. So I wanted to show support to everybody who is having a hard time and who is really, really doing their best to be themselves, to stream in spiritual things and to be healthy and to do what they can. And it might be very, very hard for you because you have people around you, family or friends, that don't agree with you. But in the end, just being yourself and really, really helping yourself out will eventually help them. And I did want to send encouragement there because I do have a lot of people who always are having different issues. And I wanted to say that the world is changing and that everybody is waking up. And I do see a very bright future for everybody. I also wanted to address online bullying I think that it's a very, very terrible thing. And I know people who claim they're spiritual and they do it. And I wanted to say that it is just awful to do. If you don't agree with somebody, it's fine. Don't go and send them mean messages. Don't leave mean comments. Don't be rude to them. Don't stalk them. Don't be horrible in general, because that shows you have a problem with yourself. And if you claim you're spiritual and you're doing these things, then you really need a reality check. And I think that a lot of people online are pressured because of this. They did want to address that too, and say that what we give out, if it's horrible, it's because we have issues and not others. So otherwise, I had a really, really good week. So I'm really, really happy about that. And a couple of days ago, I felt there was something off with my body, and I had this vision to take aloe vera. Like, okay, so it's funny because I do detoxes because of the fact that was diagnosed with lupus. So I was doing a small detox. I was like, something's wrong, because I was having a bit of mucus buildup, and then I was shown a vision to take aloe vera, because aloe vera is the same sort of condensation as mucus, and apparently it's sort of like a anti-venom or what do you call it? Anti-venom, I guess you would say, to the mucus. If you put something in your body that is a similar consistency. Okay, so I saw somebody who had anger issues that I needed to give them prickly cactus. Cactus is a rather angry plant in nature. You see all the thorns, all of the pricks coming out of it. So I was shown to give them prickly cactus, and it would take care of their anger. And so I've been giving them prickly cactus. And I've noticed, like, every time I have an issue, I seem to have these visions and downloads about plants. But aloe vera, if you have an inflammation of the body and you're doing detoxes, you do definitely need to take aloe vera if you have mucus, or if you have any buildup within yourself, and you know that something's not very, very well, that you're not flowing right. Take aloe vera, because it's really, really good for you. So I did get that download. And I also, I had this very strange experience. I have a brother, and I won't say his name, and he's very dear to me, and ever since I was little, he's always been an aid to me in every way possible, and I cherish and love him greatly. And I feel like he is a very old soul, and he's traveled very, very many worlds, and I don't think he's fully awakened to it yet. And I think he does know a lot of stuff, but he doesn't remember quite about that. Well, anyhow, I had this vision that I was suddenly transported to, it seemed like maybe Egypt, and there was this being, and it was a very tall being, like 7 feet tall, and it was fully all like liquid gold, except around its head it had sort of like the Statue of Liberty. It's sort of like sun sort of with the things coming, how would you say that? Almost like the Statue of Liberty, where it has the spikes for the sun thing around the head, except it was attached to its body, and it was 7 feet tall, and I call her a she, but there was no gender to the being, and it was fully liquid gold. And I was transported there, and my brother was next to me, and except he was just very differently, and he was showing me a sarcophagus, and he was the being was putting magic over the sarcophagus, and he was telling me that it was mine. And it was very, very interesting, because I do have a lot of memories from Egypt and Atlantis and stuff like that. Well, anyhow, the being was she was like weaving energy like that over the sarcophagus, and as she did, symbols would appear in the sarcophagus. And my brother said that we had been in a deep sleep, and that we were meant to awaken in this day and age. And he reminded me to not forget that. And interestingly enough, then he started showing me how the Mayans and everything was connected. All of the stream of consciousness was directly connected. So it was a very, very magical experience, and I really enjoyed having that. It made me quite happy after that, because every time I get memories from Egypt, I seem to like be very happy. Anyhow, to continue on, I did want to speak a little bit about Casbolt. By the way, is my microphone okay? Okay. That I did want to go ahead and speak a little bit about Casbolt, and this is going to be very hard to do it in such a way that it doesn't make anybody upset. I did want to say, before I met Casbolt, I was having dreams that his soul was not in his body. I was having dreams that his soul was coming to me and was actually pleading for help. And he would speak to me very, very much. I had a very, very strange experience with this whole Casbolt thing. And it also, during that time, with everything that happened and the fact that I have to take very well care of myself because I get energetic attacks and I also stream in lots of energy, so I have to be very on point with and very mature and on point about taking care of myself. And during the time that I experienced everything that happened with James Casbolt, I had a very, very bad time on an energetic level. It seemed like I was getting attacked by everything. It was insane. Even going to sleep to try to rest my body, to try to recover myself so that I could come back and cope with everything, wasn't happening. I was getting attacked even then. So I realized whatever had pulled him down was very, very powerful, and there is no doubt about that, because I'm a very good astraler and I'm also very well protected. And what I faced with him is, if you look at me from the first time I did my first interview, I look vibrant, to the time where during everything was happening I looked so frail and I look almost deathly at one time because of what I experienced also from that. And the fact that I feel that there was some sort of connected coup, you might say, to take him down. And I think it happened before I met him. I think he was going down, and that he got very lost and he started to just lose it eventually, because I believe he didn't have any backup, too much backup on a lot of levels, and he completely lost himself. I do know that he was not bad in the beginning. I don't believe that James Casbolt was bad. I get very upset when people say that he's evil or he's this. I do believe that he lost his mind eventually, and that's because of all of the negative forces. And it's very interesting because the other night I was, I was watching a documentary about L. Ron Hubbard, and I noticed how eventually he got taken over, and the whole, even his concept, he had some very good concepts, and it got taken over, everything infiltrated, and nobody even realizes this off at their levels. I was talking to L. Ron Hubbard, as in, I know this is a bit strange, but I can just speak to them. It's funny because I was watching this documentary about L. Ron Hubbard. I thought, oh, he's going to come and see me because he knows I can like speak to ghosts and whatever, because I'm just such a strange one. So I thought, oh no, he's going to come like that. He's going to come speak to me. So it's funny because after I watched the documentary, I climbed into bed and I thought, good, fine, maybe he's not going to like that, because I get ghosts that chatter away to me too. So it's funny, they won't stop talking because they're like, you can hear me. They just continuously chatter away. I'm like, no, I've got things to do. But anyhow, sure enough, there he appears, and he started just telling me how his whole organization was infiltrated from other levels. And it's funny because the being he is, I recognized who he was. Even he got infiltrated and totally taken over. His body got taken over. So I was chatting with him about this, and then suddenly Aleister Crowley kind of peeked in, and he showed me. He's like, I became a madman. That's what he said. He said, it's those of us who delve into different things, some of us become madmen. And he literally showed me him in a room, and he was just, his eyes bulging out, and he was definitely a madman. I was like, okay, I see what happened there. But it's funny with Crowley, I don't really get involved much there, and even though he's tried to appear and speak to me many times, I'm like, no, I definitely, because of the stuff that he went into, I know it's very, very deep. So I'm like, nope. You kind of stay away. But it's funny that, you know, it's true if you delve into these things. And if you're empathic and you stream energy, you have to be very, very careful, because that means that the forces that harm this world, they then see you as a threat. And I believe that that's what happened to James Casbolt. They saw him as a threat and they wanted to take him out, and they infiltrated him. They infiltrated L. Ron Hubbard, who was very advanced in stuff when he first began, and he was not negative. They can infiltrate you, and you have to be very, very careful. And it will make you into a madman eventually if you continue down that road. And I believe that happened to Casbolt. I do believe you can recover yourself after lots of energetic work, and I think maybe even a shaman could help. But I don't recommend people who eventually get taken over to be around anybody else, because they will drain them. And that's what exactly happened to me, is the literal connections to all of this started to drain me very, very intensely, to the point where I was very lethargic and not well, and it took a lot of work to get out of there. Also, somebody who gets into that state, they will need energy, and this is why he did so much stuff on the internet, is because the dark entity that was within him started to needed energy, and it was just attacking women who were all sorts of women, awakened women online, because of this. And the more shock value, the more energy that they can get from you. And this is why there's so much set up in the world there's wars set up. This is why there's bombing set up. This is why all this is set up, because they do this, it shocks you, they rape you of energy. And this is the same thing when somebody is possessed and not themselves. They will do shock and stuff. I was looking at Miley Cyrus's her page, her Instagram page, because I heard a lot about Miley Cyrus, and her soul also came to me some years ago and asked for help, and I really kind of passed by that, you know. Then the other day, whenever I was had the interaction with Crowley, and when he said about himself being a madman, I thought Miley Cyrus seems to have totally lost it. Same with her. She totally lost it. And so when I looked at her page, I realized that she also is possessed by a very high rank and negative entity. And it's funny because I almost said deity, and I do believe that there are the negative deities where they do rituals to put them directly into the body. The person will have to get as much energy as they can. Otherwise, the deity would kill them. These dark deities would kill them because of the fact that the energy they're pulling from the body couldn't withstand it. But I looked at her page and I realized that she also seems like she's gone mad, and it's because of the possession. So possession does make you go mad eventually, and the possessed person will do anything of shock value to be able to rape people of energy. The being within them needs to feed. It becomes it starves if it doesn't feed. So initially it's just going to do anything that's insane to try to feed. So the whole thing of saying that Casbolt went crazy eventually, and he's just, you know, this. Yes, he that was because of the negative entity in him. Sorry about that. The negative entity in him having to feed. So he started to attack people who were giving him positive energy. A lot of his supporters who were sending him positive energy. It was also a way of essentially throwing a lot of people who had followed him, because he's almost one of the pioneers in this area of speaking about things that are happening, also throwing a lot of people off so that people would just say, oh, it's just, he's crazy, he just went mad, when you don't realize that there are dark forces playing into this. If you look at James Casbolt, and if you look at Max Spears, you look at them, they're the same age. And you look at James, he starts to just look really, really bad. Whereas Max has healed a lot, and he's starting to look really, really well. Casbolt started going downhill really, really quickly in the amount of a couple of years. And this is because of the entity that was in control of him. It was also draining him himself. So you will understand that when people get drained, it's because of the fact like that, and on that level, and they start looking bad really quickly, it's because they're being drained. And often the person will often try to fight to stay in control of their body, and then eventually, if they are not getting any help, if they are not strong enough on an energetic level, I think that in life, we are tied to people who love us, so that love can essentially empower us, so that when we have issues like this, we can take care of them. If they are not tied enough down on that level, they can there is the possibility of being taken over by a negative entity. And I do believe that Casbolt did not win the battle with the dark entities, and he lost it, and he was a bit kicked out of his body, and then he was used, and he was used to be a puppet. And that's exactly what I see. Looking at him some years ago, and the pictures of him now, is nowhere near the same person at all. And you can see the devastation that's left on him and the people around him. The thing is that this is why I push so much for healing clinics and stuff like this, because instead of putting people in prison, instead of putting people in mental hospitals, we could clear them out quickly and put them back into being well within themselves. We could pull back their soul energy into them and literally push out all of the negative entities or negative energies. So this is why I push for that, because it's really, really sad to see what's going on in society. Anyhow, to continue on with James Casbolt, I started to realize that there was something wrong. When I was in Dallas, I was at my apartment in Dallas one day. I had met him at a conference in Las Vegas, and he was acting a bit off. He was acting a bit off to Max, and he was a bit saying a bit of rude things, and I was like, no, and I kind of faced him up, like, don't say that. And the funny thing is he would just like, okay, and he would not say it, because I won't put up with people talking horrible around me. So the thing is that as much as he portrayed a big baddie on the internet, if you met him in person, he was not that big baddie, and that's what I wanted to say. He was somebody to me who needed help terribly, and I didn't know what to do back then, and I didn't know exactly how to help him out or how to get across that he was not himself because he was not in his body. So I did meet him at the conference in Las Vegas, and after that, he was living in San Antonio, I was living in Dallas, and it's very interesting because one night I lay awake in my bed before I go to sleep often and meditate. And also I will send love and kind energy or send healing energy to people that I feel need it. So I thought I'm going to do a little bit to James Casbolt, because I thought he really, really needs it. So initially I just was laying there, and I started to focus on him and started to focus on his chakras and about putting energy and washing him with water. By the way, I'll have to explain that sometime, but being baptized is not by literal water. Everything's being taken literally, but it's on another level of cleansing your soul. So I'll have to explain that sometime. So I started to do what I call a cleansing of the soul on him. I started to work on him, and then suddenly I felt something just kind of like push me back, and I thought, okay, this is really interesting, I'm going to stop, because that's a cue to stop. So I decided to go ahead and stop. I closed my eyes, and for around 10 minutes I just kind of just let myself flow, and then suddenly I opened my eyes, and it was like he was floating in ghost form above my bed. And he was telling me, he just started speaking to me, and he said, listen, he said, I'm not in control of myself. I am in trouble like that. He said, he was very scared. I felt a very afraid vibe from him. He was giving off high fear energy, and I thought, this is interesting, what's going on here. Then he said, listen, I can only interact with you a couple of minutes before it comes. And I was like, what do you mean it comes? He said he had to go. He's like, because he said it's gone right now, so I was able to interact with you, but as soon as it comes back, it's going to trace me to you, and I need to go. I don't want it tracing me to you like that. So I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is very, very interesting to me, because I already was dreaming that he was having issues, but this was like literal, like he almost remote viewed or projected himself into the room where I was. So I thought, this is very, very interesting. Well, anyhow, I was like, okay. Then suddenly I felt very cold. And it's funny because I always keep my house well protected. I'm very careful of who comes in my house. I'm very careful of who I interact with, because I know this instant there are so many entities that are latched onto people. So I'm always careful with that. And until everybody's fully awakened to what's happening, there's always a possibility that they can bring you those negative entities near you. So I'm very careful with that. So I always put crystals around. I always do sage. I always do little magic stuff. Like I have this here, and it's a bit, usually I'll put rocks around it and stuff like that, so I can have a sort of protection for even when I do the videos. And then oftentimes I'll just go ahead and meditate a protection around, literally, or post one on my Facebook. I will post, nobody will enter this circle that means me harm. And it's a literal thing that says, even if you mean me harm, even if you're somebody that's on my Facebook or social media that means me harm, you can't do it. You're not allowed to. There's forces that are watching out that you don't do that, because I'm well protected. Well, anyhow, this being appeared in the room, literally right across from me, and it was archonic being. It was a bit, it was a bit snaky. It had wings, and this is the same being that I've encountered so many times. It's almost the depiction of the devil, would almost give it, say. It was an alpha draconis sort of looking being, and very telepathic. It appeared in the room, and it appeared next to my bed. And I remember that it just started to almost attack me. It was very, 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 very telepathic. And I remember I woke up literally out of my sort of like state of vibration that I was in, because I get in this state where if I can't move, I don't move, because I bring myself up, like almost like turning the sound up on the radio. I go vroom. So, and if you move like that, then it's like it's like shattered glass through your body. So I remember though, I woke right up out of that state and sat up like that and looked at it like that and just did a noise. And when I did the noise, it hit the being like that and it disappeared. So I realized that it's afraid of noises like that. So then I thought, okay, this is it. This is definitely a connection of what is messing with him. And I started to just research this. And for months on months, I started to research it. And, interacting with him, he would go in from a child altar of like 16 to being mean. And then I would literally, when he was mean, just like I was speaking to a child, I would tell him no. And literally be very, very direct to him that I would not allow him. So I started to realize there was a child altar. There was different altars in him, and it would go just like switch over when I was speaking to him. And this being was definitely in control of him. So throughout the months, I started researching all sorts of symbolism, putting all my dreams down, putting all what I saw down, all the interaction that I had, just filing it away literally within my mind, within books, within everything like that, and researching what was happening with him, because I thought this is also a key to a lot of things happening in the world. I believe that Casbolt had a big role to play in that. There was a lot that I needed to research with this. When I finished up, the conclusion I came to is all of what I said about the cosmic men who fell. I believe that Casbolt has a connection to them. I interacted with this being a lot. And the last time that I interacted with it was probably 2 to 3 months ago, before I started to really get better and started to get back to myself. And I actually was able to win a battle astrally against it. This is a being that I believe is very ancient. I believe it derives from Saturn, and I also believe that a lot of the planetarial wars were because of this being. It's quite high status, and for some reason he was the target of this being. When I was in I flew probably maybe 7 months ago. I flew back to Chicago just briefly for a visit to Chicago from here and in England. And it's funny because when I stay at places, it's again the whole protection thing. I know I'm safe in my place, in my bed. I know I'm safe. I know things can't access it. like they want because of all the stuff I do. So when I stay at a hotel, it's something totally new. It's more accessible to these entities. So what happened essentially is I flew to Chicago, and I was in Chicago, and I was at my hotel, and I tried to do a bit of protection, but I was very tired that night, and I thought, no, I'm not going to. Then I went to sleep, and then suddenly in my dream, and there were these cubes, and I remember there were thousands of cubes, and there were people all in these cubes in my dream. It was Astral, actually. I thought, the cube kept trying to pull me in it, and I wouldn't go within the cube, and I thought, this is very, very weird. All of these cubes are just sort of like floating around, and there's like people in them, so the people look like they were almost like suspended in the cubes and not alive. It was very strange. So when I got into the cube, I got into the cube somehow, because I'm not afraid of stuff in Astral. I usually just go and battle it. I often say monsters should be afraid of me, because I'm out there like, I'm in Astral like battling it out, and I don't like it, but I just think that I don't like it at all. That's the weird part, is I don't like it, but I do it. That's the funny thing, is that maybe because I see that there's a need to clear out the certain levels so that the world can become better. And I think that we will eventually figure this out, so that everything that in dream state is manifest in here, a lot of it. And if we clean out our bodies, we clean out our dream states, it manifests here too. And I definitely will have to speak about that. But anyhow, I went into the cube, and I remember it was it's sort of like, if you were in these cubes, it would drain your life force, and I had to literally go through all of this and get out of the cube, and eventually I got out of the cube, and as I did, there was that being again, and he was right there, and I remember he was quite shocked that I got out of the cube, and I stabbed him through in my dream. As soon as I stabbed him through in my dream, I woke up, and he was literally standing over my bed, and his hands were like this, going like this. This is very, very strange, because I notice in Hollywood they use a lot of the puppet, the sort of like puppet symbolism. So I thought, that's very interesting. Maybe it has connected to the way that this being had projected in sort of like a same form as a ghost over my bed, and was literally going like this, like a puppet, trying to puppet me inside of my consciousness. So I believe there's a lot of ties there, and it's the same being that messed with Casbolt. And somehow this being also told me it's tied to Aleister Crowley. I've only interacted with Aleister Crowley since I've been in touch with Mr. Casbolt. Otherwise, I never did. That's very interesting. I know that there is some sort of group that wanted to put together the original, what they call the language of God. When I say the language of God I mean that there's certain, it's not a language, it's certain vibrations, certain way of pronouncing these vibrations and bringing them up and lower and stuff. This sort of creates, it manifests, it's called the language of God. It's not easy to explain at all. But anyhow, I knew that Aleister Crowley was one of them, along with maybe this being and this whole group that were trying to get all these relics together so that they could find the language of God, and so that they could become gods themselves. And I remember probably a couple of years ago that a lot of their stuff was destroyed on another level because of that. I don't want to say that I necessarily think that Mr. Crowley is terribly evil. I think he did dark stuff. I will not say about souls. For me, that soul, their interaction, their thing, the stuff they did, it's with God. It's with the divine universe, divine source. It's not with me. But I want to say is that I do believe that Crowley definitely did some pretty dark stuff on a level, and that he is tied into whatever this being was. I don't know if he spoke to it or if he interacted with it. I do know it told me it was Iwas. One of its forms was Iwas. And where Aleister Crowley, I think he says he goes to the pyramids or something. I don't know. I don't read Aleister Crowley's stuff. I kind of Google him sometimes if I have any sort of information comes to me. So this being did tell me it was Iwas was one of its manifestations. It does change forms and take on different other sorts of forms. But this is the being that I believe is throughout history called many things. I believe that it's called all sorts of things throughout history. I believe a lot of the negative deities are based after whatever this being, this consciousness is. I do believe it's tied into the parasitic virus that I was speaking about, and I'm putting this all together slowly, and I'm eventually seeing this picture. And even though there's all of these leads, you know, all of these sort of like connecting puzzle pieces, there is a picture in the end, and I'm starting to see a quite clear picture of exactly what's happening. I almost feel like Sherlock Holmes when he's locked in that room and he's got all these threads back together saying everything connects, like that. And in the game, and it's a game of shadows because exactly what I experienced. And now that I'm better, I'm starting to stand up again for myself and to really, you know, say what happened to me and literally face up the people who've supported the dark side and claim that they're spiritual. I believe so many people that were interacting with Casbolt were not doing a lot of good for him either. I believe that there was a sort of thing to bring him down because he was speaking out about stuff. What we need to realize is that sitting there and saying he's a madman or he's crazy, we should not listen. You know, we should disregard all of his previous information. I think information from years ago, some of his older videos had quite a bit of information in that should be taken not lightly because it's very, very in-depth. I do believe that we really, really need to, when we take any information, we need to sift through it. I think the best thing that can be done for James Casbolt right now is that you pray for him. And, you know, I don't like the word prayer because it has pray in it, to pray. I would say meditate and send him, you know, just meditate and imagine water washing over him, imagine stuff like that because it'll cleanse the soul and it'll help him out, and that's the best way we can help him. I just wanted to speak a little bit about that and about how I believe he was possessed and how I believe that he eventually lost it because of the possession. This is what I want to speak about. I did not want to speak about too much of his personal stuff. I am very respectful to him and his family and everything else that happened with him. But I did want to say that these are my views on that he is possessed. And I believe now that he's maybe put away where he can't harm others, the being might let go of him because it's not allowed to use him to feed off of others. So I do believe that that's good for right now. Until there is a solution done within the world on mass scale, because so many people I think are being infiltrated and have been used just to, you know, attack people. You know, if you have friends who backstab you, if you have partners who are harmful to you, if you have just family who are mean to you and unloving, you need to realize that it's because all of these people are being infiltrated. There's nothing wrong with you. These people are being infiltrated and used to literally take energy from you. And it's funny because people who are awake, their energy is much more clear because they watch out for themselves. They watch out what they put in their body. They watch out, you know, different stuff. So they're more targets. They want to take energy from, you know, they want to take good energy from you. They want the caviar of energy. They prefer, you know, going after you if you're a big ball of light because you're like the caviar, you know. They don't want to have the off-brand energy that's all icky because of the fact that these people are not taking care of themselves. So you are much more of a target than anybody else because you're taking care of yourself. You're taking care of yourself on whether it's physically or whether it's spiritually, you're taking care of yourself. So you have cleaner, clearer energy, and they see it as amazing caviar. You're almost like chocolate for negative energies. So what you have to entities that want to feed off you. So you want to take care of yourself and make sure that they cannot access you. And you need to understand is that a lot of people that you're connected to will be used by darker entities because they are not awake. And once they awaken, then they won't be able to. But until they awaken, they will be used. And this is the problem. This is why they're trying to keep the world asleep, is because people are usable. They can use people who are asleep. They can use them for whatever they want. but people are awake, they can't. That's the problem. So they want the masses to stay asleep. I did want to finish this off with the whole thing going on with the Catholic Church. I did want to say that, you know, it's horrible that we put a person like the Pope that we put him on a throne, literally above others, when he's not. And it's funny because the picture came out of them holding the little girl in such a terrible way. And I wanted to say that we definitely need to look at the signs, and we need to stop giving power to these people, and we need to stop saying that they're good, because they're not good. And they're also going against universal laws. You are not supposed to worship anything or any man. You're supposed to be in touch with your divine self. They have taught you religion to get you to worship. Worship, you give your energy. You literally ship your energy out of yourself into others when you worship. So when you worship these people by supporting them too, you're giving them their energy. And he literally, everything about him, he's telling you he's a Saturn, Satan worshiper. He's telling you he's a priest for Saturn. He's one of the highest priests of Saturn. A lot of religions, the higher ups are priests for Saturn, and they bring energy and they give it to this Saturn, to this satanic consciousness, to this parasitic consciousness. They are willing to sacrifice people up in anything that they need to keep their statuses, and to also keep this parasitic consciousness happy. We need to, but we can change all of this by simply, literally, massively especially on social media, getting these pictures around of how they're literally, how the one where he's holding the kid, that one needs to go around, because it's terrible that they put it right in public and they laugh at you. Again, it's the shock value. They know people who are awake will see this, and they know that they'll get mad. So essentially, try not to get too angry about it, but try to stream that anger in such a way that you can spread around and get people awakened to what's happening. And sorry, I'm getting short of breath. It's still not easy to speak on here. I think I get like a bit of energetically attacked. See, it's like almost like something tries to choke me sometimes. Energetically attacked. It's funny because at one time I had somebody literally put a spell on me that I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak for a couple of months from that. I couldn't even say anything normally. I was out with family and friends. I couldn't speak. I'm like, what's happening here? This is not normal. Then when I did some work, I literally was able to like take it off and just like send it back to the person. So I'm guessing they didn't fare very well with that. What they try to do is everybody tries to pull you down and then throw more and more on you till you sink. But the problem is that you know what? It's very easy, especially now, to get above the water and to get back floating above the water and not sunk underneath it with all of this. See, if I acknowledge that something is happening to me like I just did, and initially push that back, mirror back, it will let go of me, and I will have my voice return to me, and I don't feel short of breath anymore. I've learned that the mirror technique is probably the best. You can just mirror something right back to the person, literally, or mirror, if you see anything around you, just mirror it back. And it's funny because inside of, what is it? I was watched some movie ages ago where if there was like demons or something, they'd mirror it back to the demon, and when the demon would see its face, it would totally run off because it was scared of its own self. That's it. But anyhow, I did want to say that about the whole Catholic Church and about the Vatican and about the whole thing with the Pope. I do believe that this is literally the brink. It's the last steps before everybody becomes awakened, and we are living in a time that is so amazing, and everything's going to be okay. Don't fall into fair porn. Don't fall into attacking others. Just, take care of yourself. Don't fall into anything religious, literally. It's to drain you and use you like cattle. Just do what you can. Achieve happiness, achieve health, achieve balance within your everyday, and everything will be fine. And that literally will just ripple out to everybody else around you. Just realize is that there's so much fair porn going on right now. It's incredible, and we don't need to fall into that. We need to really work on ourselves, that we are going up. Even though the world seems to be crumbling around us, we still need to work on ourselves, and we need to go ahead and do meditation and stream that everything will be fine in the end. And we are connected to God. God is within us, and we need to realize that. And I think once we realize that God is within us, then we don't no longer need religion. And once the world wakes up that God is within, they won't need religion at all. They won't, people like the Pope won't have power. They'll be very sad, won't they? Because they won't be able to literally rape other people of energy. They won't be able to do the things that they're doing, and they will fall from the statuses they have, and they won't be seen as men of honor or noble men or men of God. They will be seen for who they truly are, and one day in the future that will arrive, and it's definitely a lovely thing. So I did want to end with that, and I do have a question and answer, but I won't do that today because I feel like I just feel like I'd probably rather walk off and go have some tea right now. So I will go ahead and answer the questions that I have on my Facebook and on my social media, and I will answer them personally to make everybody happy. I did want to thank everybody who supports, who sends me lovely messages, and who sends me small gifts, because sometimes people send me small gifts. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. It does make me smile because I'm always giving stuff to other people, so it's like I love giving gifts very, very much. So I'm always giving stuff to other people all the time. So sometimes just little crystals and stuff, and it's definitely very lovely that I've got sent those things, and I'm very happy about it. And I did want to wish everybody always just major amounts of inspiration, major amounts of love, and major amounts of happiness, and evolve, and don't be the same person you were yesterday. Be a new person today, and don't be the same person you were a year ago. That's what life is about, for us to evolve, for us to be the fish that fights upriver and goes higher places. So I wanted to finish with that and thank everybody for being lovely always.